It went too left with the education system, too left with sex books in the kindergarten age.
Why does this policy 5756 exist in New Jersey? Boys should not be in girls' sports. They shouldn't be in their bathrooms.
Nothing in America is short of hard work, sweat, blood, and tears. I believe that misconception of an immediate opportunity just by crossing this border is what is drafting all of this bad wind and bad energy.
The government has so much power. I don't co-parent with the government.
These are all highly funded organizations that are pushing this agenda in our state. And that is why I try to tell parents, you need to get involved.
We need to protect our borders. We need to deport all illegal immigrants.
My message to the Latinos are really to wake up and take in the experiences that you've been able to take in as an American citizen and look back and reflect of what our leaders are not only doing for you, but also for your country abroad in terms of their national vote and participation in politics.
Thank you all for coming today. WalkAway's been in New Jersey a lot over the last few months and will continue to be throughout the rest of this year and beyond. There's a crucial governor's race coming up in New Jersey and a lot for people to be talking about and paying attention to. So I wanted to get together some people in the Latino community in New Jersey to talk about the issues that concern you as Americans, but also you as people in the Latino community and people in New Jersey. So why don't we start off today by going around in a circle and tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Marcella Crossman, live in Cedar Grove, New Jersey, married 22 years, 14-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son. I'm here to try to change the way New Jersey handles the education system.
Love it.
Yes, I'm Marcos Marte. 32 years of age at this time. All of my years of life lived here within the state of New Jersey. And I've really encountered and lived through an experience very unique and of its own with my parents coming here from the Dominican Republic and myself being born 2 years just after that immigration. But yes, we've been able to crush and accomplish the American dream through a lot of sacrifice and virtue of a very hard work ethic. And proudly, I'm here to testify of my walking away from the Democratic Party about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
My name is Kaidi. I'm known on social media as Defender of the Republic, and it is in my volunteer time. I am part of Latinos for America First. I'm the national director of the Northeast part of the organization. I am the national advisor for minority warfighters for America First veterans, and I am also the New Jersey director for the Conservative Caucus. I am a mother in New Jersey. I have two beautiful little girls, and they're the reason why I fight, and they're the reason why I now have common sense and walked away from the Democrat Party.
Great. So I want to start off today by asking you a yes/no question. Hold it. You've got paddles in front of you to be ready to hold it up when you get your question. So, talking today with Latino Americans from New Jersey, and my first question for you is yes or no. I walked away from the Democratic Party. Wow. So I guess we could start anywhere. Would you like to share your story?
Sure. 2020, 14-year-old and 10-year-old now, so 4 years ago, school shut down. This is America. My children couldn't get an education system. Whether it was a private school or a public school, there was nothing we can do. Being powerless of not being able to send my kids to school in America blew my mind. That's the turning point for me. We migrated from Ecuador to avoid these things, and then 40 plus years later, it's happening here. And no matter how much money, resources, connections, nothing happened. And we were impacted. My little guy, he's 10 now, he still is behind reading and math. We haven't recovered. And we have the means to put him in tutors and nothing. Imagine if the folks that don't have the means, how behind they are. That's what turned me.
How long ago did you immigrate from Ecuador?
1983.
Okay, so you've been here a while.
Yeah, 1983. My brother, my parents, Jersey City, lived in a basement. Parents had nothing, had plenty of reasons to actually use government funding and never did. Dad had 2 jobs, welder, mom, housekeeper at a hotel in New York City, 20 plus years. Worked my way up into where I am now at a great fintech with 0 connections, no network, not knowing anyone, just pure hard work. But that's the American dream. Mm-hmm. It gave me the opportunity to have 0, nothing, no one. And now I'm, not to sound a little arrogant, but I make mountains move in the financial industry and I impact, our economy. And my dad was a welder and my mom was a housekeeper. Right? Only in America can you have that. Again, but that was 20, 25 years ago. Forward the clock today, my niece, who's 27, they can't get an apartment on their own, right? They can't buy their home. Like, it's harder now. It's so much more expensive to do what I did, and I see the struggle. Something's got to change.
Marcos, go ahead.
Yeah, so my retreat from the Democratic Party was when I became of a knowledgeable age of around 10 to 12 years old. When my parents first immigrated here from the Dominican Republic, leaving absolutely everything behind and their education that was at a high level and that careership, all for the American dream and the opportunity to come to this country, they took that chance by obtaining that visa through a familiar sponsor. So after my first 10 years of living within Paterson, there was not much to offer. And when my father was blessed with a great opportunity that took us to move once over into the southern parts of New Jersey, I remember upon graduating from college now, my father retelling me a story of how I cried, learning that there was going to be an opportunity at hot lunch in the grade school that I was going into. And noticing a lot of the qualities of the things that were taking part in that inner city of Paterson, that was predominantly Latino or Hispanic or of Dominican descent, as I was able to share with a lot of people within my family and my close friends of family. All being from the same community, we were able to collaborate and make things better, although we had not much. So being able to move and relocate to an area that was a lot more middle class really made me take a political lens to my form of thinking, to really observe what changes that I was going to now be able to partake in, as opposed to the friends that I've left behind in Paterson. So I began to pay a lot closer look to our leaders in our state and the promises that were being made year after year after year, but were never kept. And that ultimately led me to decide to think for myself, seek information, and that led to a very large change in 2016 with the new change of political power in this country through the presidency. And it really made me and emboldened me to be more determinative of seeking my own opportunity and finding my own way to the American dream, which I now can say I have.
I want to ask you, you said you, as a child, cried about the opportunity for hot lunch. Why?
Well, yeah, I would not touch the lunch. I'd pretty much go through the school day without a meal growing up in Paterson because I can say I've been blessed by a mother with a very great cooking hand and a great recipe book that spoiled me to the point where I was not agreeing with the paper carton pizza or the paper chocolate milks and the sloppy Joe lunch that was being given at the time of lunch during that grade school. And I remember just coming home and my grandmother always having a lunch prepared for me. But seeing just initially when I got the syllabus or the guidelines to the new school I was going to enter, and seeing that there are hot lunches, different menu items that you can actually have a choice over, as opposed to what was being given and provided at a minimum or a maximum, whichever way you look at it, in the public inner city school system, it was to tears, to the calling of the emotional response.
Thank you. Heidi?
Yeah, so I wish I was as smart as you were to walk away sooner than I did. But the reason I walked away was it was during the election cycle after the Hillary Trump election. And at the time, I didn't vote. And I didn't vote because I felt that we didn't have a good choice. And
In 2016, you didn't
in
vote?
2016,
Okay.
correct. In 2016, I did not vote. So I've been at my job for a very long time. My boss at the time knew that as a person, I'm a very, rebellious and committed to what's right type of person. And he kept saying, Heidi, you really should look at Donald Trump. I think you would love him. And I was like, absolutely not. That guy's a businessman. He's not a politician. So I started to look and I gave him a shot. And as president, I started looking at some of the things he was doing. And I was amazed that he was a real person. He really cared about the country and that the media was demonizing him. And so the more I looked, the more I supported him and I started to talk about it. And my friends asked me right before 2020 when all of the COVID mess was happening, because it became okay to talk about politics back then, they said, who are you voting for? And when I said Donald Trump, my friends of 20 plus years called me racist. Now, yeah. I mean, so, my background, my mom's Puerto Rican, my dad's Chinese Jamaican. So to have my friends tell me that I'm racist was very confusing. Yeah. And I had just had my second daughter in June of 2020, so hormones were crazy. And I was upset. I was upset that the media stole my friends from me. That is literally how I felt. So I couldn't talk to them anymore because they disowned me as a friend. And so I started to talk to the internet. And as I was finding things out and I realized my friends didn't see it too, I put it out on the internet and I said, are you guys seeing this? Do you understand what's really happening? So I started to make these videos and they went viral. So that is part of the reason I walked away. But then I also realized how bad Barack Obama was. I supported him twice. And when I started to look at what he really did during his presidency, and I found out that he was probably the most corrupt president we ever had, it was time to walk away.
Did you vote for Obama?
I did.
I did too.
Yeah.
Twice. And I voted for Hillary. I didn't sit out the 2016 election. So, but you brought up the media, which is always my favorite thing to talk about, because that was first let me acknowledge something that I think is very interesting. Pretty much all of you gave answers about your reasons for walking away having to do with experiences in your own life and to a certain degree local government, whether it was things happening in the schools or with COVID or your schools. That sort of fascinates me because my experience walking away was very much, I'd say, kind of cultural and sort of national, just the national rhetoric around Donald Trump, as you said, racist, bigot, all of these different things. And the things I saw shifting in our culture, like the push toward the LGBTQIA2+, all of this stuff. I'm saying this as a gay man, but the how far extreme the radical gender ideology has kind of become, and all of the conversation about race. But it's fascinating to me that your stories really are about kind of personal experiences in your own state and your own community. But you said the media took your friends away. It's a powerful statement, I think. Can we talk a little bit more about the media's effect on brainwashing people, or is that fair to say?
For sure, absolutely. I think the problem is people aren't used to the fact that the media could lie to them. They think that maybe there's a law against this, and they don't realize just how much they get away with, how much they coordinate, and what the narrative spin really means, and how much money is behind it, and how much power is behind it, and
agenda.
Right, and I think a lot of the problem is that human beings don't want to believe that there could be such evil in the world. Mm-hmm. And that is the problem, is that once you open your eyes to the reality of what the media has done, you start to see how evil people could be. And people don't want to know that. They walk away from it.
Before we move on to Marcos, I just wanted to say quickly, because you said a moment ago that, I think people think that the media can't lie. Yeah. It sounds silly, but I totally agree with that. And I've said this so many times. I actually sort of remember growing up and when I was in grade school, feeling like we were actually sort of taught that the media is an authority figure that you can trust and that you can believe in that. I feel like my generation was actually taught to trust the media. And we've had conversations at this table with a number of different groups. And one of the conversations I was having with New Jersey mayors, we were talking about how much more savvy young people are today, because although it can be a double-edged sword, the internet and social media, but they are learning a lot by getting on social media and getting on the web and seeing that maybe the media is not necessarily to be trusted. And in a way, I think that gives them an advantage over people, some of our generations that didn't grow up with social media. What do you think?
No, as you mentioned earlier, I have a plethora of reasons why I left from the left and walked away. More conveniently so, as you just mentioned, with the media and the correlation of its intertwined ship with the left or the Democrat Party, it really has taken a toll. I grew up after the period where I moved down to South Jersey, creating a very large community upon video games and collaborating to competitively play and tour across the country and competitively play and go against other folks around the country. And that just leading into say how some that are watching this show right now will remember what Gamergate was. That tied in exactly with what was going on with the woman that wrote the Harry Potter series. It was
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling. And if you do some research back into 2014, premature to the Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton face-off, that is when a lot of the spin on the internet to manipulate minds really began from a media standpoint, where they're trying to manipulate and sensitize men in a way where they weren't to collaborate or to play violent video games such as Call of Duty due to the things that it could cause. But those causes or definitive effects, such as mass shootings and mass acts of violence, weren't really correlated as they are correlated to drugs and psychedelic things that happen or psychoactive drugs that people partake in. So just that confusion that is always spun into our everyday part of our life, and you see its direct correlation with very needless research done, just goes right back to the Democrat talking parrot heads at CNN or MSNBC or anything like that we now term. And it is true because they are the reason why we've lost trust on what they tell us, not the other way around. I remember one of my earliest traumatic memories with the media for all of my 90s babies and guys out there that used to watch Dragon Ball Z. We had to argue with our mother to turn that TV to the correct dial at 5:30. And instead of watching my favorite cartoon shown in the world at the time to be entertained, I was watching tragedy after tragedy after tragedy and getting one happy-go-lucky dog story at the end. And that's when I knew I cannot be feeding myself this poison or sit here to watch this news even at a young age, because it's not good for me to take in 25 minutes of bad and 5 minutes of good.
Fair. Thoughts on the media?
Oh, well, how do I say this without insulting?
This is an open forum.
I mean, it's actually depressing and heartbreaking to see that these professionals, journalists that take oaths to telling the truth, is not reality 100% of the time. Like you said, it is crafted, it is a narrative, it is an agenda. So all I can think of is when my kids are my age, what are they gonna look at? Like what? It's so corrupt, and the amount of money they're making off of us, right, and treating us as puppets is just completely wrong. I tried to watch it all to see and sort of gauge and understand, but within minutes it's frustrating. Like you can't watch it anymore. But who's fixing it? Like who's going against them, right? There's a push now, right? But how do we keep it going? How do we keep the momentum going on getting these true open sources that are telling the truth going forward, right? Your campaign opened up a lot of horrible things. How do we continue to grow that?
You know, it's an interesting question. How do we stop this, or how far does it go? Because there's almost limitless protection under the First Amendment for the media. I mean, I don't think there really legally is anything that could be done to stop them from creating the lies and the manipulation and the false narratives that they do. I've often wondered, would they change their tune if they just lost the majority of their voting base? Because to your point, I mean, they do seem to be just an operational arm of the Democratic Party. And if they lose enough of their voters, will they finally stop peddling these false narratives? Because basically they just want to control people through fear, a steady diet of fear.
And what I would say really wins that over in our calling battle right now is the grassroots and the word of mouth. It's still the most powerful form of communication, but the barrier, that TDS syndrome and things like that now have gotten into the flurry of political debate and just speak in terms of localities. It's really what is advantageous. And what we see now with the current administration taking over the Voice of America, combating against PBS and NPR, we really have to filter through the academic inflation that we're in and the stoutness of some individuals as though they feel that they know more than the working man that goes through the daily limbo of life and trying to make it day to day, 15th to 30th or the 1st, instead of having a cozy net of trusts to sit upon, and you can actually dictate and opinionate over what discourse of life actually may be. But now we see that most of our local leaders that are triple dipping, or even at the legislative level or the senatorial level, even into the national levels, they're just so high on a high, or so up high on a high horse that they don't see what's happening on the ground level. They may reach out during campaign times only every 2 or 4 years, where they'll get the messaging, but they will not act on it. And that's what we see time over time, especially here in New Jersey. A lot of people that have been commanding from a position for more than a decade, and they have not brought forth any logistical or remarkable change to their community. And again, you see it's a seesaw, and it's unfortunate to see that the money is what levels that balancing field out. And for a lot of us that have had to go through life and make these experiences, are now learning that unfortunately in the state, neither party are really applicable to making an impactful change in our life.
Man, I agree. I want to say I agree with every word you just said, every single word. I believe that a lot of our elected officials, especially in DC, seem to know the least about what's actually going on than the rest of us who are actually on social media or out there seeing with our own eyes and ears what's happening. And then we have a huge problem too with them getting absolutely nothing done.
Univision, Telemundo, if you think the mainstream in the English language is bad, it's 10 times worse in the Latino community.
Wow.
Because they only have 2 channels, period. And it's 100% brainwashing. My mom calls me all the time, did you hear that Trump went to take this lady? Ma, it's not true. And they don't have anything to reconcile. And we're the most at the conservative from a core value perspective, yet our voting track record doesn't show it because we don't know, because we're told to do this. And there's no sort of reconciling or at least checking on the other side. So that probably is worse than your CNNs in English, than the 2 only channels that tell you just one thing all the time.
Such a good and important point that you're making, and I think that's going to be really eye-opening to a lot of people who are not from the Latino or Hispanic community, because we don't speak Spanish, we don't watch these channels, we don't have relatives in our family who are watching these channels, we don't know this. So I hear this, and the first thing I think to myself is, why are conservatives or why are the Republican Party not putting out more messaging in Spanish and addressing these people or debunking these false narratives that are being put in people's heads?
I'll tell you why.
Yeah, please, tell us.
They just don't care. We're just left to the side. They don't realize that we are a voting bloc. That there is a 20% Latino footprint in New Jersey. We moved the needle for President Trump. You would think we'd have 70% of the conservative caucus being here and trying to understand the message we sent. As a blue state, we don't want to put up with this anymore. It went too left with the education system, too left with sex books in the kindergarten age, right? Too left with whatever other crazy stuff that the traditional Spanish people like. We're just not good enough. I don't know. We're maybe a little always late to the party. Maybe we're a little bit all over the.
Maybe they think it's too much work,
Right. It is right. Exactly. And
too much effort.
it's low level. We're low level hanging fruit.
I was actually thinking about that on the way here, and I think it's because of our foundational system as Latinos, if I may say from my experience. We're so deeply rooted in our faith and freedom that sometimes we're so apathetic or empathetic to what people go through that we do not want to cross that boundary of business. And sometimes we do stand firm in our principles and our beliefs, but we do not push our morals upon other people. So sometimes that's why I feel as though Latinos are more reluctant, but at the same time, that reservation and the impacts and the push from the media may coerce that a little bit, especially in the political playing field. It's very interesting how Latinos kind of like categorize or box things in, and especially like politics and religion being one. But those needles are some variables that can be pushed and can be changed time after time. But I think that empathy, or that over-empathy, or sympathizing with some groups that are categorized as minorities or left behind or being hurt or trampled, that is all coming from the media. What our communities are actually seeing every day is much different, and life would be different if that TV was shut off.
Yeah.
Kaidi, I know you had some thoughts.
Yeah, so outside of just the 2 television channels that we have access to, the radio stations, right? So Latinos listen to a lot of radio, but what people forget is that George Soros purchased 200 of the top Latino radio stations across the country. So our messaging is coming from people like George Soros, who is funding the Democrat Party. So a lot of Latinos have to make sure, if they haven't already, that they're learning to be independent thinkers. And that is why with our communities, we're very community-based people. So if you shut off the TV, you shut off the radio, and you just start talking to each other, despite the fact that we have those 2 channels and those infiltrated radio stations, we are still voting more so conservative than ever before because we're talking to each other. Yeah. And I think that's important.
I did want to add on to that, because that's a great point. And something that's been like on my forefront to remind all of my Latino voters is to think about how and research how every impact of these national leaders or local leaders that achieve that power nationally, it has a deep impact not only here, but it does have an impact at home. In my country, where my parents immigrated from, the Dominican Republic, they saw a lot of repercussions from some of the policies that were set here from people that we voted for. So to say, you left home to find a better life, but you have the action and the ability to continue that legacy at home just through a vote. So the vote here is much more significant than has been seen. Just seeing now across the last 12 years of a presidential changeover, we've seen the hard-hitting negative effect of 16 years of Democratic rule as opposed to the 8 or 4 of Republican rule across the last 20 years, and how it's deeply impacted the Dominican Republic, not only from the Haiti earthquake to then LGBTQIA push, and the massive amounts of money through U.S. aid and other vehicles that have been pushed there. I was looking to become a member and participate in a career in the embassy in the Dominican Republic. That still is a dream of mine today, to be able to amicably work as a vehicle between both countries. But unfortunately, the policies during the Democrats was not anything binding for trade or anything that is positive in the notion, rather influence over our culture that doesn't need any breaking down or changing or conversion. Our culture is one of the best, one of the richest, one of the most lovable and graceful. And for US dollars coming from taxpayers that have immigrated over to find a better life are now adding to that destruction. And we really have to wake up and make the right choice.
And we're afraid. We think our vote doesn't count, our voice doesn't count, and we're afraid. We're afraid to push back. Remember, we're immigrants. We're coming from a socialist, dictator-like country, so speaking up is not allowed, or you're gonna die. We come here to mind our business, put our heads down, and whatever I say or whatever I do, it won't be an impact. And that's sort of the general mentality why you don't see a lot more of us speaking out.
The threat of that is why I speak up, because I know the reality that could happen in this country, and I think we became very dangerously close to that. And unless more Latinos, more people in general speak out, we could lose our country. And I don't think people realize just how close we've been.
Yeah, we're not out of the danger zone.
Exactly.
That's for sure. So I want to ask a yes/no question to everybody here. Yes or no, I identify as a proud member of the Latinx community.
Definitely not.
You're not proud, or what is it?
That is a liberal term that was given to our community that is not real.
For months, we didn't know what it meant. I thought they were saying something wrong. Like, I think they're mispronouncing the.
There's no need to personify our culture. If you are a woman, Latina, if you're a male, Latino, it's none of the difference. We all share the same beliefs.
So why is it happening? Why is the left doing this? Why did they make up these terms?
Same reason why they push, all the LGBT trans things to children, right? It's the same thing. It's all narrative.
That was the key to the door to
Right.
everyone's mind.
Exactly. If as long as they can put you in a bucket and tell you this is what you are, they have control over it.
They realized they're a voting bloc, and let's figure out how to get them attracted or make them feel more important or different or unique, and let's come up with a nickname that just makes no sense.
Is it about gender? Is it about blurring gender? Is that because Latino is too male? Is
I'm
that-
assuming. I don't even know.
I still am not sure the purpose, but it's something to do with gender and then confusion.
Yeah, from my recollection, it was the same key to the door where they were trying to bring that influence of gender into the frame of what was being spoken to day, and it was pushed. I feel like it was really taken up by the younger second generation of immigrants and their second generation Americans that were still trying to find themselves between being American or of Latino diaspora or generational coming to this country, and they really wanted that term of endearment not only to give space for those that are genderless or they don't go by any of the he or she pronouns, but yeah, that's pretty much what opened the door to bring that gender equality and pronouns into the Latino frame.
But it does seem like it was created not within your community. I mean, I imagine it was probably made up by a 65-year-old white lesbian.
100%. There was no Hispanic Latino coming in and saying, let's come up with the name to figure out our gender. Not one. Whether you're in the left or the right or the middle. That was not, I can guarantee you, bet you $100 you're right. It wasn't a Latino person who came up with that name.
Yeah, I remember Hispanic Latino being trivial, a fun question that people would talk about within cultures, whether they vary from Latin America or the Caribbean or elsewhere from Spain. So it was more trivial and just fun-provoking.
Well, it seems really contradictory to what I perceive to be Latino culture in general. I mean, when I think of Latino culture, I think of strong gender roles. I think of, people are very proud of their mothers and, the type of mothers that grew up and strong fathers. And, there's not really a lot of gender blurring, I don't think, traditionally in this community, is there?
It was a great marketing ploy to break a very strong culture. They did a really good job of it with that,
Wow.
but
To break a strong culture. That's
And definitely in the culture of having that nuclear family system. That definitely also was something that pried in between that.
That's right. If you break the family unit, then everyone's broken and everyone's going to look for something else to tie into, and that's when the bad influence comes in. And I think that's what it was, is to target and make the paternal, the strong father look like a chauvinist, right? And then the mother, just a
Weak.
victim,
Yeah.
right? And can't do, right? And because if that family unit's broken, the children are left out there vulnerable, and then they'll come in and indoctrinize them 100%. And make them whatever it is that they want.
I mean, it seems to me that Latino families are sort of synonymous with strength. I mean, the strength and the power of the family unit. I think of just about any culture that's exemplified within the Latino community. And So it does seem like there's a push by the left to try to constantly break that which doesn't need to be fixed.
So if you think about it, macho is a Spanish word to say, strong man, macho. Machista is machismo, right? Bad, a beater, a wife beater, a deadbeat dad. They're using these negative terms directly to target, like you said, to the Latino community, because we are the most strongest unit from a cultural perspective. So it's common sense, right, to go in after and look at what they've done with the dads, right, and not being allowed to be masculine, and then lift out these feminist women that you shouldn't have babies and you should work and whatever, all this crazy stuff. I thought I was a feminist because I was a Marine, right? And I worked, and I don't depend on my husband. And then my daughter and I believe in strong women and support them and independent. And my daughter's gonna be like that. So we looked up the definition of a feminist, and it said we don't like men. But I love my husband, and she loves her dad, and I love my dad. And it was so negative that feminism goes against the male gender and anything to do with male, and their whole agenda is to take down the male world. I'm like, okay, time out. We are not feminists. Yeah. We're just strong women. That's what we're. But for a while, I believed in the feminist movement, and yes, I believe in strong women, and you should not be a victim. But wow, was I so uneducated and so ignorant to what they were really going after.
Well, and we were talking about the term Latinx. It's just one example of the left sort of playing with language and playing with our traditional concepts of what our society is. And another, I think, prime example of that right now is what I call the radical transgender agenda or gender ideology that's happening. I'd like to hear, because we have parents here, yeah? And I want to hear, what is that like, when you're sending your kids to school? Is that a concern of yours? What's being taught in our schools?
Majorly.
Tell me.
So I will tell you right now, last week, I went to my 4th board meeting at my daughter's school district because they are pushing boys and girls spaces. They are pushing all of these ideologies where, they don't want parents involved in the process. And for me to tell you guys the story, it's crazy, but when we went to the first board meeting, and it was a common sense thing, like, why does this policy 5756 exist in New Jersey? Boys should not be in girls' sports. They shouldn't be in their bathrooms. We went to this board meeting. There were about 7 or 8 parents there, and 100 activists showed up from across the entire state, along with the vice president of the NJEA, to push for 5756, saying that we were radical parents and that we do not accept transgender children, and how dare we. And they actually had people that came to talk about their transgender child who had committed suicide, to try to push the emotionality of it. They had transgender doctors, therapists, to try to shame us, essentially, for standing up for our children. And it is absolutely insane that right now I've been to 4 board meetings fighting for this, and it's just common sense. And it doesn't make sense that in 2025, I'm still fighting for this when the president just signed an executive order saying that we're getting rid of this, and New Jersey is fighting against him, saying, no, we want to groom your children.
I'm raising athletes. My daughter has been playing tennis since she was 3. My little guy's hockey and lacrosse. She's busting her ass on trying to just compete with, her girls. To know that there are people who are okay for a 6'5", 17-year-old play against my 5'7", 100-pound girl because he decided to be a girl is right.
It's crazy.
Why is that right? So yes, I worry. And what worries me the most is not that they would be influenced and then be influenced in changing their ways. What worries me is that I don't have control over that. The policies, it is now law, that a boy can play against her. It is law that you can have these horrible books in lower grade schools, right? And I have no control.
It's also policy in a lot of schools to to go behind the parents' back.
That's even worse, right? And so that's that fear in my heart, and I'm afraid of nothing, but that does worry me. And how do we do that? And it doesn't matter whether it's public schools or private schools are the same, right? My kids go to a private school. And the same influences are still happening there. So you think you're like, oh, let me run away and go to a private school. No, the government has so much power. I don't co-parent with the government.
And it's not, well, the problem is it's not just the government. So here in New Jersey, you've got Garden State Equality, the ACLU New Jersey, you've got High Tops. These are all highly funded organizations that are pushing this agenda in our state. And that is why I try to tell parents, you need to get involved, because we're not going to be able to fight this as a small army, because they have a lot of money behind them. And again, they're working with the NJEA, they're working with schools, they're showing up at board meetings when we're not. And so if you think about the Latino community and how close-knit we are, if you get them involved in this fight, we can win this battle for our children.
And there's still legislature waiting for tabling here. I'm not a parent by any means at this time, but there are bills in our legislature that are still waiting to table that are going to basically usurp that relationship between parents and their children, even allowing or denunciating the age of consent for children to see medical doctors or medical assistants to 14, even 13. And if that happens, one complaint or one simple advice or guidance from a teacher could land your child or daughter or your child in the guidance counselor's office, which then in turn could be a medical office. And then when your child returns home, they're not the way that you last saw them when you kissed them goodbye for school. And that is a very troubling aspect as I'm aspiring to become a parent, knowing what is beholden to them in the educational system that they'll enter.
So lowering that age of consent, medical consent, is something that's being pushed in New Jersey.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's basically taking the responsibility away from the parent. The child will be of knowing and non-ignorant age upon reaching 12, which may not even in some children be the age of puberty, but they are allowed to make those unconscionable decisions for themselves, ever changing their human experience for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, lifelong consequences.
It's already happening. I have a friend of mine who went to get the medical records for her son, and they denied her the medical records and said, because he's 16, they said he's the one that has to request his medical records. You can't request
And
them.
if they were able to ill-advise me academically, and reflecting back to where I've been able to reach now, I can only imagine what they're doing psychologically or emotionally.
Well, and I just, this portion of the conversation began with the term Latinx, and it's like I can't help but think to myself, we weren't really talking about these things just even 10 years ago, or certainly before that, and now there's like this, it's on fire, this push to allow a 13-year-old to make a decision if they want a double mastectomy or puberty blockers or lifelong permanent alterations to their body or hormones. And it's all under the guise of progress, a lot like Latinx. It's progressive, is it not?
Yeah, and they're making money off of it.
Yeah, it's status.
It's a double whammy. Right?
Yeah, they're trying to change the status quo into their own, even though it's like a dichotomy now where there's two status quos. But one is only the one we're seeing now that we're fighting against is proliferating due to its influence through the media. That's the way that it's spreading. I believe if most of our children were not on the television or not communicating online and TikTok, that ill advice would not be brought to their their
That's
mind.
the problem the left doesn't understand, is that you mess with a Latin child, it comes with a lot of people behind them to protect them. And so I think that is why the conversation has gotten so much bigger within the Latin community, is because they've messed with the wrong people.
I think especially a New Jersey Latino mom. You know, we've also talked to New Jersey moms here at this round table. It's a huge issue for a lot of moms. I think it was, you know, COVID when people started really paying attention to what their kids were being taught in schools because they were hearing the Zoom calls that were happening. I think suddenly a lot of parents woke up.
And you saw that on the voting pattern. Again, back to President Trump's election in New Jersey, a lot of the registered Democrats did vote for President Trump in the Latin community because of that. Enough is enough, right? And we're hoping that we continue that pattern and continue to walk away here in New Jersey. The older community I worry about because they're still a little ignorant and they just dig their heads in talking, you know, just from personal experience with my parents. They don't want to be bothered. They're like, well, if we don't look at it or hear it, it doesn't exist. But the problem is it's creeping in no matter what, right? And we just need to continue to educate.
I will tell you that the way I've seen that change is that Latinos are very religious. Right, so in churches, and I will say the Christian community doesn't show up enough when it comes to voting, but they are very conservative. So I will tell you, I was surprised that a lot of my family I didn't talk politics with, who are very religious, were like, "Oh, I love Donald Trump," you know, and it's because they're so religious that they were like, "Donald Trump is the guy. He's the guy that shares my beliefs." And so they start talking to each other within their churches about it more, but we just have to make sure they actually get out and vote because a lot of them don't. And I think that is the difference with the Latin community is that even though we represent a large portion of the state, a lot of them sit at home for elections.
Even the local elections, we need to figure that out. Yeah, we need to figure that out quickly.
So talking today with Latino Americans in New Jersey, and I have a yes/no question for you. Yes or no, I am against deporting illegal migrants. No, from everybody. Well, I think, you know, the common perception that the left would like people to believe, or the media would like people to believe, is that it is cruel and inhumane and not compassionate to deport people who have come into our country illegally. And I think I would take it a step further and they would say, shame on any of you who are immigrants or from families of immigrants who would be okay with anybody being deported. What do you think about that?
One of the biggest catastrophes that happened to my rooted country, Dominican Republic, was the 2008 Haiti earthquake that absolutely destroyed both countries amicably due to the mass migration and assistance that we provided and the obstacles that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation put in our way. That problem has now progressed massively as to where now we're at the point where the Dominican Republic was offering Donald Trump advice on how to build a wall and how to deport these people that are foreign to your country to provide and protect your sovereign country. So I do not believe that this is an isolated issue. This issue is important to any country that fought for their independence in this earth.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
It's absolute common sense that, you know, when people, first off, people should not be breaking the law, right? And that is first and foremost. When people want to come to America, sure, we welcome them if they follow the process. Now, if they're coming in illegally, I can't support crime. I just absolutely can't support that. The other thing is having these sanctuary cities in different states, it's absolutely destroying our cities, and we can't handle the amount of people coming in, and it's hurting the people that are living there. Right now, schools can't handle the number of kids coming in, that, you know, we can't handle the crime that's happening. We're not arresting people fast enough. There's so many things that it affects for Americans that are trying to just live their day to day, and that is what people aren't understanding when they want us to be more compassionate. Yes, I'm compassionate. I care about people, but I care about the people that live in this country to shield them from criminals.
Marcel?
Right. The fact that they're making it okay that illegal criminals who are raping and killing children, I should feel bad about, is, it goes without saying, right? It just doesn't make sense. We need to protect our borders. We need to deport all illegal immigrants, and we need to tighten them. We also need to be very clear with the other countries is fix your problem, don't make it our problem.
That's
Right? They're leaving because your country is a disaster. Fix your problems. So when we send them back, I think there needs to be reform. I wish I had the answer to what it was. There needs to be some sort of reform. But first and foremost, close the borders and get them out. Get out all of these criminals. Because it's also costing us, right? The average American taxpayer, we're giving money to these people. We're enabling this behavior out of our pocket. And then on the other side, I can't afford to pay my bills. Like, it's just common sense. And which is why the Latino population is all about deportation, because they work hard for their family, not for someone else. So if their money's going to someone else that didn't do it the right way, their minds are exploding.
And quickly to add, what a reminder I'd like to give to our community is that look at the countless stories of people that have drained their life savings from these remote places in these countries in Latin America, all for the broken promise of an opportunity in America. They use all of those 20, 30 years of amassed savings to get to this country illegally and not have any opportunities, and then go through more hardship. Even when my parents had the legal opportunity, and now up until this point, 30 years in the country, we've been able to provide financial sponsoring and backing for 5 other family members to immigrate here. Once they get here, there is still a massive amount of work ethic necessary to get up and to provide for yourself and then bring additional family or raise a family here. So nothing in America is short of hard work, sweat, blood, and tears. And I believe that misconception of an immediate opportunity just by crossing this border is what is drafting all of this bad wind and bad energy. Instead of cooperating with the United States of America as one of these countries to open up trade and create those opportunities inland for their people to pay back that national debt. That is the idea of why we walk away from the left and why we move towards the right, because we see that promise under this administration and what they're able to do with our own pockets.
Amen.
Very well said.
It's been great talking with all of you today. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. Really eye-opening. And as we close out today, I just want to ask you, what is your hope for New Jersey going forward?
Education reform. Like you said in the beginning, the governor's race is extremely important this year. We need the right person on that seat to focus for our future. People don't realize that education to the littles are the future of America. If we get it right from the start, they will take the state to the next level, which is why, to me, priority 1 for our new governor, which will be Bill Spadia, is education. So if you're listening, Bill, it better be education.
Yes, my message to the Latinos are really to wake up and take in the experiences that you've been able to take in as an American citizen and look back and reflect of what our leaders are not only doing for you, but also for your country abroad in terms of their national vote and participation in politics. So yeah, we really have to reconcile the principles, the reasoning of why we came to this country, and we have to make sure that we stand for those same values now as we did then.
For me, I living in New Jersey has just become so unaffordable. Our roads are horrible. Every part of this state needs to be fixed, and that is why I want more people that live here to be informed. I want them to be informed voters. I want them to get out there, get active, go to Trenton, speak on the things that are problematic for us, right? We have the most expensive energy costs of any state, the highest taxes of any state. So, that is why it's important for voters to be informed. And anyone that knows me knows that I'm a major supporter of Bill Spadia, because he is the one guy that knows about how to fix these problems, because he's been talking to the people of this state for over 10 years, and he's not a politician. He's not going to lie to the community. He's not going to lie like all of these guys have been doing for way too long, and we need to be able to hold people accountable moving forward.
Thank you very much.